With all the cases of domestic violence riddling the NFL, some are wondering why it is that female athletes seem to get a pass when it comes to issues of domestic violence. Recently, CNN tackled this issue, and there was one commentator who brought up an interesting point about Hope Solo, a soccer player. Take a look.
It's so important now that we stop hero worshiping as sports writers in particular. You know, we stopped doing it with politicians after Watergate, but when it comes to our athletes, we still want to put them in a position of being these great guys based upon their on-field performance, and we've got to stop doing that. And we also need to be critical of the women as well. We have Hope Solo, who's been accused of domestic violence.
Tell me more about that one, because I've seen people this week saying, why isn't Hope Solo's case being talked about more?
Well, I think we know why, right? It's about gender difference, and it's about the sport that they play. Hope Solo, and forgive me, but soccer just is not as relevant in this country as the NFL, so that's part of it.
Right.
But then it's also the imagery, the ideal of a big, strong man hitting a defenseless woman does something to us that a woman hitting a woman does not do. But if domestic violence is the issue, then we need to be consistent with that in our reporting as sports writers.
So that was LZ Granderson, and I think that he actually makes a really good point there, where, you know, we've kind of come together and decided, okay, what Ray Rice did was wrong. He needs to be suspended indefinitely from the NFL. You know, there needs to be these harsh consequences for these male athletes. But honestly, I hadn't even heard or seen the Hope Solo story until today. And for those of you who don't know why she's facing charges of assault, apparently she assaulted her half-sister and also her 17-year-old nephew. When authorities were called on the scene, they said that she seemed to be intoxicated and that the victims had visible injuries, okay? So it doesn't seem like it was a little thing. It seems like it's a pretty big deal, but even though she's facing criminal charges for what happened, let's keep it real, you know, we do have the justice system going after her. It turns out the U.S. soccer team that she plays for is not really that concerned about any type of consequences for her. So they did release a statement. Let me read that to you. They said the following: "We are aware that Hope is handling a personal situation at the moment. At the same time, she has an opportunity to set a significant record that speaks to her hard work and dedication over the years with the national team. While considering all factors involved, we believe that we should recognize that in the proper way." So they basically said right there that, hey, you know what, she's one of our key players. We can't mess with that.
The reason why I'm afraid of this story is because Hope Solo's husband is a former pro football player named Jeremy Stevens, who we've done stories about. And Jeremy Stevens has we could do 7 minutes on Jeremy Stevens. From the time he was in high school, through his collegiate career, and through his NFL career, Jeremy Stevens has been accused of some fairly horrific acts of violence. And I would only say about Hope Solo that, and I don't know, maybe they have a great marriage. She also might be in an incredibly violent relationship. And I don't know what happened, and I guess we should take all acts of domestic violence, whether they're perpetrated by a woman. It just seems like we're white evangelicals saying that we're discriminated against in this country. Like, the issue is men beating up women. Are there women who beat up men? Yeah, it happens.
I know, but there are also situations where women beat up women, which is what happened in this case.
Yeah,
right?
Well, her nephew and her sister.
Right,
yeah.
right.
Yeah, look, that's assault, and it should be taken seriously, but we also should not divert our attention from what is the real issue that has been brushed under the rug by sports leagues and by society in general, that we don't take it terribly seriously, that it's just a husband and wife fighting, that we don't provide resources for women who are in very real danger or not real danger, but they think they're in real danger. And either way, they deserve protection until they can figure out that they're not in real danger. And so focusing on Hope Solo seems a bit of a misdirection for me. If she has committed the crime that she's accused of, then perhaps the national team should let her go. I got that, but it doesn't seem to me to be anywhere near the same level that we've seen in the NFL. And the guy, I mean, Jeremy Stevens was accused of hitting a kid in high school over the head with a baseball bat. He was accused of sexual assault, of rape at Washington, and he was accused of crimes since he's been in the NFL. Jeremy Stevens seems like a criminal. And this is she's been with him since I think they were together at University of Washington. I'm not 100% sure. So I don't know. He seems like a super violent guy, and I don't know. And it may turn out when this is all said and done that she is under his spell as well. I don't know. I'm talking out of my ass, but I know that I don't like Jeremy Stevens.
Yeah.
He seems like a super dangerous guy, and everywhere he went, for whether it was in high school because he was super talented, they were like, just maybe don't hit another kid over the head with a baseball bat. And the rape allegation, it went away.
Yeah.
Even though I read a long story about it in the Seattle Times or maybe the Post-Intelligencer, and it seemed to me, oh, he raped that girl. So so she is in a difficult situation. That's my hesitancy.
So here's what my issue is. Through reporting on these stories over the last month, I really realized that there's a huge population of people in the country that feel like this is like a war against dudes, right? That guys who have been abused in the past aren't properly being represented, right? Or that women are able to do the exact same thing that a man does in terms of physical violence, but she doesn't get punished as harshly as a man does. And that exists. That double standard exists. I mean, I'm noticing that double standard doesn't necessarily exist in our justice system because she is facing charges. So she is being investigated. She had to enter a plea, and she pleaded not guilty to the assault. And look, we don't know all the facts. We weren't there in that room. We don't know what happened. We haven't seen a video, right? But at the same time, if she is accused of that type of activity, that type of violence, I don't care who she's with. I don't care who her husband is, and I don't care what kind of violence he's accused of. She is her own person. So regardless of what kind of relationship you're in, you can't go around assaulting other people. And so if we're gonna sit here and have conversations about NFL players and how we should be harsh with them if they're caught in a situation of domestic violence, we should have the same treatment for women or female athletes as well. That's my biggest concern.
Yeah, you know what? I don't know that it's a double standard. It's a standard, and we say the word double standard like we've just said racism. Mm-hmm. We have a lot of double standards. Some of them are good. An example that I always use is you go into the 7-Eleven and stick a gun in the clerk's face and steal the money and then pistol whip him and leave him bleeding on the floor and steal what's there. You've committed a crime at the 7-Eleven and robbed them. At the same time, if you go into the 7-Eleven and you steal a pack of gum in the New York Times, you've also robbed them. But we treat those crimes very differently.
Right.
Now, I grant, and here we're talking about some degree of domestic violence. But obviously, shoving someone because they're in your face and you go like this and they stumble back and they hit their head and it's bad and they cut themselves, that's a crime. You can't shove somebody, mm-hmm. right? Decking your fiance and then stepping over her on an elevator and having her hit her head there is a different kind of crime. Mm-hmm. And I don't know exactly what she did with her nephew or this, but I don't want to lose focus that we have occasionally for years overly performance enhancing drugged up athletes mm-hmm. filled with rage, taught to hit and hit and hit and hit and hit from the time they were young, coaches praising them for the violence it's a violent game and we praise and like that violence. And then they take some of them, mm-hmm. most of the guys in the NFL are good, decent, and dedicated athletes, and then some of them take out their violence, in Adrian Peterson's case, on a tiny little 4-year-old boy, and in Ray Rice's case, on a woman who was incredibly mad at him. Justifiably, by the way, I'm sure. And that's a big, giant issue that is separate from individual cases of domestic violence involving women that should, of course, be investigated, but they aren't the same.
Yeah. No, I think that the broader issue is the fact that when it comes to professional sports, the sport or the game itself is more important than the players involved or the players' families involved. And it's all about profit. It's all about bottom lines. And, when you really think about the response that Hope Solo's team released, that's what it was all about. It was about, hey, you know what? We need her. Yeah. She's important to us. She's important to the game. And that trumps everything else. That means that there's something wrong with the country, right? When we think that a game is more important than the safety and security of individuals that might be in an abusive relationship.
Also, who gives a shit about soccer? You were going to say that, right?